Before modern medicine, before global trade, before empires crossed oceans for spices, there was a root, hidden deep within the mountains of Korea and China.
Emperors wanted it. Hunters risked their lives for it. Kingdoms went to war over it.
Because this was not just a plant, this was ginseng.
Now here's where it gets strange. People didn't just value ginseng, they were terrified of it. Some believed that if you discovered an ancient root, it would try to run away.
Others believed it glowed in the dark. It was placed in the mountains by the gods themselves. A gift hidden in the most dangerous places on Earth to help humanity survive. Look at it. Really look at it. It looks human. But what made people truly obsess over this root was something you have to see to believe.
In Chinese, they had a name for it, renshen. It literally translates to one thing, man root. They weren't being poetic. To understand why this root drove the world mad, you need to go where it lives. The Changbai Mountains, the ancient border between Korea and China. Winters here lasted 6 months. Temperatures dropped to -40, -40. The kind of cold that kills ideas, not just bodies. Yet somehow, in the middle of all that death, a single plant not only survived, it thrived. Beneath the frozen ground, in total darkness, growing slowly for decades, sometimes for over 100 years, without anyone knowing it was there.
A root this size, no bigger than my hand, dug from the right mountain, the right slope, to the right cinch, could be worth more than a house. Not a figure of speech, more.
So, how does it survive? How does anything survive 100 years in those mountains? I'll tell you the secret. And when I do, I want you to think about whether it works for more than just plants.
When things got dangerous, drought, disease, heat, ginseng didn't fight it, didn't resist. It just disappeared. Went completely silent and waited for years until the world was ready for it again.
Think about that for a second. The most resilient living thing on this mountain survived not by being strong, not by fighting, but by knowing when to go quiet, when to stop. But ginseng didn't survive alone. It had help. And the first helpers were absolutely tiny. This little guy right here.
But underground is where it gets extraordinary. Beneath the soil was an entire communication network, fungal threads called mycorrhizae, connecting ginseng to other plants.
Sharing nutrients, sending signals, a living internet, built by nature, running for centuries.
The mountain wasn't just home to ginseng. The mountain was protecting it. Every tree, every creature, every root in the ground, working together.
Invisibly, to keep this one plant alive. You want to know why people said ginseng was sacred? This is why.
In ancient history, placed ginseng above every other substance on the planet. Not ranked it highly, above everything.
They called it qi, the life force inside every living thing. Believe ginseng didn't just treat sickness, it rebuilt the energy that made you alive in the first place. And this wasn't folk belief passed between farmers. This was written down over 2,000 years ago. In the Shenong Benchao Jing, one of the oldest medical texts ever recorded, ginseng was listed first. And here's the part that should stop you cold. Modern science ran the tests and found something real. Compounds in ginseng called ginsenosides, unique to this plant, found nowhere else. Interact with the body's stress system, support the immune response, improve circulation. They weren't wrong.
While China consumed ginseng by the ton, someone had to find it. And the greatest hunters in the world came from Korea. They had a name, Samani.
This wasn't just foraging. Finding ginseng required years of training. The Samani learned to read the land like a language, things you couldn't learn from a book, things you could only inherit from a father or a grandfather.
In Korea, ginseng was never just medicine. It was a covenant between the human and natural world. Take what you need, not what you want. Give back what you can.
Let's go back to the 1500s. The Ming Dynasty was one of the most powerful empires in the world. It might sound impossible, but this empire fell because of a root.
The Manchu tribal, scattered, considered no threat at all, until they found something in their mountains that the most powerful emperor in the world desperately wanted.
Wild ginseng, the Ming emperor consumed every single day, a root that his court physicians called irreplaceable. Manchu controlled every gram of it. Think about what that means. Trouble.
Their leader Nurhaci understood immediately. He was, without question, one of the greatest strategic minds of his era. He didn't see ginseng as medicine. He saw it as leverage used the revenue to build a unified army.
They built something the Ming Dynasty hadn't seen coming. A coalition, funded in large part by a root.
With money from ginseng, Nurhaci forged alliances, bought weapons, paid soldiers. Tribe by tribe, deal by deal.
When Ming officials tried to cut off Manchu ginseng trade, Nurhaci declared it an act of war. In 1619, at the Battle of Sarhu, the Ming sent 4 armies. Nurhaci sent 1, and won.
History called it one of the most decisive military upsets of the century. The Ming Dynasty never fully recovered.
In 1644, after decades of war, famine, and debt, the Ming Dynasty collapsed. One of the longest-running empires in human history. Gone. In its place, the Qing Dynasty. Manchu rulers, now sitting on the dragon throne of China. The same people who had dug ginseng from the mountains, now ruling the richest empire on earth.
And somewhere in the Manchurian mountains, beneath the forest floor, in the dark and the cold, a root was growing.
But the story doesn't end in Asia. It crosses an ocean. 1716, a French Jesuit priest named Lafitau is living with the Mohawk people in what is now Canada.
He's read everything written about ginseng. The shape of the leaves, the mountain habitat, the human-like root. He's sitting in a Mohawk settlement, and then he looks down at the plant in an elder's hand, and he stops breathing.
The plant the Mohawk people had been using as medicine for generations, growing wild in the Appalachian forests, was the same plant.
Something about ancient land bridges, continental drift, shared geological history. But for Lafitau in that moment, it was simply a miracle.
The exact same plant, growing on opposite sides of the world. Scientists would spend decades figuring out why.
Word spread fast. The same root worshipped by Chinese emperors prior was growing wild North American forests. Within years, it was a gold rush. Except the gold was green, and it grew in the ground. Settlers who had struggled to survive suddenly had a product the richest empire on earth would pay anything for.
I shipped 12 tons of American ginseng to China over my career. 12 tons.
John Jacob Astor, who would become the first multimillionaire in American history, started with ginseng, a mountain root from a forest in Manchuria.
Was now moving across the Pacific Ocean, building American fortunes. Once again, without anyone planning it, a root from the mountains was changing the world.
But here's where the story turns dark. Because every empire, every gold rush, every obsession eventually hits the same wall. What happens when you take more than nature can give back? Wild ginseng is now an endangered species. In some regions, digging it is a criminal offense. The thing humanity spent 3,000 years pursuing, more life, more strength, more time, was destroyed. By the very thing that wanted it. By us.
But the story isn't over. Because ginseng does what ginseng has always done. It waits. In the Korean mountains today,
And beneath the soil, in the dark, in the cold, where no one can see, the roots that survived grow quietly on.
The same way they've always grown. 1 millimeter per year. Still here, still waiting, still surviving.
And when I stood on this mountain, the same mountain where this story began, I kept thinking about what ginseng figured out that we never did. For us to slow down enough to deserve it. It didn't survive 3,000 years by being powerful. It survived by being patient, by knowing when to stop, by knowing when to disappear. For us to slow down enough to deserve it. The mountain is still here. The root is still here, waiting, as it always has, for us to slow down enough to deserve it.
The next part.
They traded Manhattan for this spice. Nutmeg was worth more than diamonds and gold. Empires killed for it. Nations traded cities for it. The insane true story of the spice that changed the world.
Do subscribe and like our channel.